probationary period that you are going to stay, that it gets a lot rougher than this. One of the things that we've talked about is the money that's allocated for the new library services for our incarcerated folks. And I know that you're wanting to expand that to returning citizens. But the advocates that have been involved in this have worked very hard initially to be sure that our incarcerated folks there at CTF and at the city jail receive library services. So that will be the first priority of this funding, not also then returning citizens. I mean, and you must have other funding as well in terms of adult literacy and things. Do you want to speak to that at all?
Absolutely, Council Member. For me, it's more of a philosophical approach to sort of a continuum of learning needs that the folks in the jail have. And I just want to make sure that it's not just this sort of transactional process by which we're delivering books to the folks in jail, but not also spending a lot of time thinking about what their very acute needs are after they do return. And I know that there is an Office of Returning Citizens with whom I've not spoken, so I'll admit that. But just having worked very, very closely with this population in my past life, even when you do something as simple as a workforce development workshop, working with someone who's been released from jail or from prison to create a resume to explain what he or she's been doing for 3 or 5 years, that has to be part of this continuum.
So we have returning citizens funds, we have adult literacy funds, we have a couple of other pots as well. What I want to be careful of is that while we really must coordinate this, and if it were under you, that would be fabulous, but that it does need to be coordinated in a comprehensive way. To, our average returning citizens age is in early mid-40s, which is, a little startling. They didn't get much education at all before they left, and may not have had much education since they've been incarcerated. And they're returning by the thousands. And so figuring out how to be sure we have services for them so that they can engage. I mean, they come back, they don't even know, how a smartphone works. I mean, think of the very basics of what they have to engage in. And then we say, now get a job. So the degree to which that can be coordinated, either be very enlightening to have it through the public library system. But the other piece that I don't want to lose is this specific hard cost to down at DC jail of having, library services available. So there are things that are blended, but yet don't want to lose what we fought for here.
Absolutely, Council Member, and quite honestly, we haven't had a tremendous amount of time to think through what this program is going to look like. We really had to turn around a budget within 24 or 48 hours. But clearly, and to Councilmember Catania's point earlier, we are absolutely interested in breaking down some of the silos and also sort of finding what our best niche is. The library is not interested in duplicating efforts of other agencies, but we are looking to make life better for all the district's residents. So it's a point well taken, and I'm sure that you'll be happy with the result.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Chair. And of course, thank you, Mr. Grasso, for your indulgence.
Mr. Grasso, thank you.
Thank you. And I also want to welcome you to the city. I appreciate your willingness to serve and engage. I think you were right in your testimony to say that this is one of the more dynamic library systems in the country and has the potential to be the greatest in the world. So I think you're in a great spot, and I think you should feel very lucky. I was also going to ask some questions about the library in the D.C. jail. They're a little more specific, and if you haven't had time to really dig into it like you said, I'm happy to have a response after the hearing submitted to the committee. But for the record, I'm curious where you're going to get your information, what other jurisdictions do you know of that we can consult, where there's best practices. I want to know how you're going to develop your collection for the D.C. jail library access. It's important that we do a diverse approach there that's not just the standard, but recognize the different needs for different types of populations.
Absolutely, and there are some best practices out there. And there are some real thought leaders around the country, several of whom I know quite well.
Great.
Who I'll be working with and who my team will be working with. So we will do this right, and that's something we can guarantee you.
I appreciate that, and if you can, as you move forward, just keep the committee and my office updated on what you're doing, just so we can make sure the public's aware as well, and we can be a real advocate for you in the efforts that you're doing to do it right.
We'll absolutely do that.
Then we don't just wake up and say you did it wrong.
Okay.
You know what I mean? The other thing I had to know, I want to just put on the record for that aspect of your budget hearing today is that my hope is that on October 1 you have something up and running. If you could do it sooner, great, but let's not drag our feet. That's when the budget comes down. As soon as we get the money, I think it should be good to get it going. I know it takes time to set these things up and do them right, but let's not get to next January or February and say we're still working on it, but instead let's have something developed over the summer and then just put it right in the new fiscal year. So
Right.
hopefully we can do that.
The most amount of time we need typically is just for the ordering of materials and
Right.
having them processed, and that can be a month, a couple of months, depending on what we're buying, but it shouldn't be a terribly cumbersome process by which we are up and running.
Great. Well, as quickly as you can do it, I think is important, and we'll be watching that as
Thank
well.
you.
Just shift topic a little bit more on your general budget item.